Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the controversy with Don Lemon? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of Don Lemon, then move to my analysis. Don Lemon was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on March 1, 1966. His father was an attorney who helped fight segregation on public transportation. During his senior year of high school, Don was elected class president. In 1996, Don graduated from Brooklyn College. He had majored in broadcast journalism. He worked for a few Fox and NBC affiliates over the next several years. In 2006, Don started working for CNN. He was on a few different shows. Eventually, he was featured on CNN Tonight with Don Lemon, which was later renamed Don Lemon Tonight. In February 2022, CNN announced that Don Lemon would have a talk show called The Don Lemon Show, which would appear on their new streaming service called CNN+. This streaming service only lasted 1 month. In November 2022, Don Lemon was assigned to co-anchor a morning show called CNN This Morning. He was no longer in prime time. Don referred to this move as a promotion. I'm not convinced Don knows what the word promotion means. He can add this to the list of other words that are foreign to him, like humility or objective. On April 24, 2023, Don Lemon was fired by CNN. Or to put it in a way that Don Lemon would understand, he received the biggest promotion of his life. After the lemon drop, so to speak, Don posted a message on Twitter saying that he was stunned by the termination. After 17 years at CNN, he would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell him directly. He suggested that he was never given any indication he would be fired. Don appeared to be as sour as a lemon. CNN refuted Don's assertion, calling his statement inaccurate. They said, quote, "He was offered an opportunity to meet with management, but instead released a statement on Twitter," unquote. Now moving to my analysis. Why was Don Lemon fired by CNN? No official reason was ever given, but it seems clear that Don's career was characterized by repeated, unusual, bizarre, and offensive behavior. Here's a list of various controversial moments in Don's work history. Item number 1. Don Lemon appeared to hate Donald Trump. He referred to him as a racist. To be fair, Donald Trump was not a member of the Don Lemon fan club either. He referred to Don as the, quote, dumbest man on television, unquote. It would appear that disliking Donald Trump was a successful strategy for Don Lemon. It did not seem to hurt Don's career. He had already alienated conservatives long before this. Item number 2. During an on-air conversation about firearms, Don demonstrated that he did not know the difference between a semi-automatic and automatic firearm. He pretended he did, but he really didn't. He insisted that he had once personally purchased an automatic weapon. When confronted with the facts about those terms, he argued that it was just semantics. Technically, under certain conditions in most states, older automatic weapons can be legally purchased through a rigorous process. But clearly the weapon that Don purchased was semi-automatic. Item number 3. In 2013, Don made on-air statements offering controversial advice to black people. He said they should not wear baggy pants or have children out of wedlock. Some people viewed Don's statements as racist. Item number 4. In 2014, while covering the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, Don asked an aviation expert whether the plane could have flown into a black hole. Like he really wanted to know. Don actually wondered if it was possible for an airplane to fall victim to a black hole. The expert reassured Don that a black hole was not the culprit. I think it's safe to say that Don can add physics to the list of areas on which he is not qualified to comment. Although, to be fair, Don did later fly his career into a black hole. Item number 5. On one occasion in 2021, it appears as though Don Lemon tried to render assistance to Jussie Smollett by informing Jussie that the Chicago police did not believe the fabricated story about being attacked. Don Lemon may have missed school on the day when they covered journalistic ethics. Item number 6. In September 2022, Don asked a political commentator if she was suffering from mommy brain because she appeared to forget something she was going to say. Many people interpreted this remark as sexist. Item number 7. During an incident in December of 2022, Don argued with his co-anchors on CNN This Morning about how female athletes were not paid as much money as male athletes. He said that people are more interested in men. He also claimed that he could not be sexist because he grew up in a family of women. Item number 8. During an episode of CNN This Morning on February 19, 2023, Don Lemon was talking about how 51-year-old Nikki Haley supported mental competency tests for politicians over the age of 75. Don talked about how he believed Nikki Haley was not in her prime. He claimed that a woman could only be considered in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s. Don would later apologize, saying that his comments were inartful and irrelevant. Item number 9. On April 5, 2023, an article came out detailing alleged bad behavior by Don Lemon. He appeared to have a history of diva-like actions. Also, Don was accused of having a long history of being unkind to female colleagues. Don allegedly sent a text message to one female colleague saying, quote, "Now you've crossed the line and you're going to pay for it," unquote. During one incident involving Nancy Grace, Don mimicked her in a condescending way when they were both on air. Nancy would later describe Don as being rude and dismissive. Item number 10. On April 19, 2023, Don insulted a GOP presidential candidate named Vivek Ramaswamy during an on-air conversation. They were talking about the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement. At one point, Don made a racist comment to Vivek saying, quote, "And you're sitting here, whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me what it's like to be black in America," unquote. Item number 11. Not long before Don was fired, CNN had trouble finding guests who were willing to appear on air with him. In addition, his popularity had declined substantially. The show he was on was the lowest-rated morning show on CNN in nearly a decade. I don't think that CNN really had a choice. They were being pressured by escalating bad behavior. One could argue that the lemon had squeezed them. Moving to my last question, what do I think happened with Don Lemon? This is just a theory, my opinion. From early in his life, Don developed a few narcissistic characteristics. The features were not particularly pronounced, but they were always in the background, lurking, waiting for their time to strike. Don performed reasonably well when he worked for Fox and NBC affiliates, which eventually led to him being recognized by CNN. They gave him a chance, and he did a good job, at least initially. He advocated for racial equality and seemed quite enthusiastic. Over time, however, Don's behavior started to become problematic. He appeared to be petty, vindictive, arrogant, and he developed a sense of entitlement. Don did not like women, and he wanted to make that known. He really wasn't worried about CNN taking action against him. He was aware that CNN would be reluctant to admonish him, considering how that could be interpreted as racist. He knew that he could get away with being condescending toward female colleagues, and that's exactly what he did. The first time he was caught, CNN faced an important test. They should have taken appropriate action to correct Don's behavior, but they failed to do so. This was a critical mistake. Now all of the narcissistic characteristics, which Don possessed, became even more active. He felt invulnerable. Don would tell stories to his colleagues about how he knew important people. He would drop names all the time. He claimed that he had been involved in lawsuits, as if he was daring CNN to take action against him. He wanted to let them know that he would litigate if he had to face consequences. His tactic was successful. CNN was too cowardly to act. They just kept putting up with Don's bad behavior. Over time, Don's behavior grew even worse. He had frequent temper tantrums, started acting on the belief that he was special, and became extremely envious of colleagues who had more prominent positions at CNN. Don became intoxicated on his own perceived power. He liked being a celebrity, and he wanted people to believe that he was better than them. As far as Don Lemon's performance at work, he always pretended that he knew everything, but he simply had no idea what he was talking about much of the time. When people would call out Don for inaccuracies, he would gaslight them. Eventually, CNN tried to limit the destruction that Don could cause by containing him to a less prominent role. Don became highly upset by this and decided to ramp up his bad behavior. He demonstrated sexist attitudes in his comments about Nikki Haley and racist attitudes when speaking to Vivek Ramaswamy. Don Lemon was sending a clear message to CNN, daring them to take any action against him. CNN finally decided to fire him based on the racist comments. Essentially, CNN implied that they could tolerate sexism, but not both sexism and racism. Now, moving to my final thoughts. This case contains a few valuable lessons. 1. Just because somebody claims to be against racism doesn't mean that they can't be racist themselves. 2. As people gain power and status, they run the risk of activating underlying narcissistic characteristics. 3. Companies should never reward a narcissistic and toxic worker. This only makes the employee recalcitrant. They should remember this tip. When life gives you lemons, it's best to make lemonade and not to aid the lemon. Those are my thoughts on the controversy surrounding Don Lemon. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.